right, good morning. I'd like to ask someone from TPOt, if you could, to possibly join us up here at the table until we get another member. We're one shy of a quorum. What's that? Never mind, we've got a quorum right here coming in. You got lucky, TPOt. There's Troy. So hey, we're good to go. With that, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Obviously, we've got a quorum now, so we'll start with introductions. We'll start over here on this side.
Dakota Gentry, City of Alcoa.
Dallas Dearman, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
James Temple, Sevier County.
Durand Hacker, Blount County Highway Department for Chico Messer.
Amy Brooks, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Brian Boone, City of Maryville Engineering and Public Works.
Doug Burton, your new TPO coordinator.
Congratulations. Jack Walls, City of Loudoun County.
Catherine Baldwin, Anderson County.
Jim Snowden, Knox County Engineering and Public Works.
I'm Tom Clable with City of Knoxville Engineering.
Blake Sarton, Metro Knoxville Airport Authority.
Larry Gann, City of Clinton.
Steve Nielsen, City of Morristown, representing the Lambto area.
Troy Everett, Regional and TPOt.
All right, thank you. Any participants on Zoom this morning? Okay. Amendments to the agenda. Anyone have any amendments, comments on the agenda? Okay. We're skipping the acronyms that's in your packet if you need to reference those. Item number 2, I need a motion to approve the minutes from December 12th, 2023 Technical Committee meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passed. Item number 3 is the election of officers. Mr. Burton.
Thank you. Our bylaws call that after the first meeting of the year, we have to have election of officers. We did get a little confused. I know some of you also sit from time to time as a proxy on the executive board. The executive board says the chair and vice chair are elected to a 2-year term, and they can serve 2 terms. The technical committee is a 1-year term, but you can serve 2 terms. If you remember, Jack and Jim Snowden were elected when Wayne Blasius had to resign back in April. So they did a partial term. And I wasn't sure. I looked up at Robert Rules of Order, and it seemed to suggest that this would count as a full term. We would have to have something in our bylaws that said a partial term doesn't count as a full term if that's the way we wanted to go. But both of them are eligible for 1 more term if that's what the Tech Committee wants. Or, as always, we're open to anyone else putting their name forward. So that's.
I make a motion to reinstate the current officers.
Second.
Is there any other nominations? All right.
Short stick.
Yeah, seeing none. I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor signalize with saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. All right. Item number 4, 2020-2024 Safety Performance Measure Targets. Mr. Conger.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So this is an action item today to recommend approval of resolution adopting the 2020 to 2024 Safety Performance Measure Targets to the Executive Board. So I have a couple slides of background here. Most of you have seen these before, but there might be a couple new folks here. This stems from the Federal Highway Requirements for Transportation Performance Management. Came out with MAP 21 back in 2014. Went through rulemaking, became effective in 2017. So this is tied to the funding from Federal Highway. They want to track the performance of that and make sure that the funding is meeting the goals set out for that funding. Each funding program they have, like the Highway Safety Improvement Program, NHPP, and other funds have performance measures tied to that. So it's all about accountability, again, and tracking the performance of the system. So there's 7 national goal areas that these are tied to. There's 3 performance management areas, PM1, 2, and 3. Today we're talking about PM1 safety. This is an annual target, whereas the other 2, PM2 and 3, are 4-year targets. You might recall last year we set new 4-year targets for those two. There is a process to adjust those at the midpoint, so we might bring those up again next year at this time, roughly, if there are adjustments needed for those. But so those are the goal areas. I've talked about these before. So again, safety is the one today it's required annually. TDOT sets their target back in August of last year, and that starts a clock where within 180 days, the MPOs have to either adopt or support the state targets or set their own targets. So these are the TDOT ones. This information's in your packet. I think attachment number 4A. There's 5 different target measure areas for safety. There's number of fatalities, fatality rate, so fatalities per vehicle miles traveled. There's number of serious injuries and serious injury rate, and then finally the number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. So you can see on this chart, these are done by a 5-year rolling average to kind of smooth out the ups and downs for each year. And so the target set for a 5-year period looking forward, well, it has some historical and some future years in it, 2020 to 2024. And then those are compared against the baseline as part of the target evaluation as well as the target itself. So TDOT has set these targets in all cases higher than the baseline. And this trend data will kind of bear that out, why they're doing that way, setting them higher, which is obviously we want these numbers to come down. But this first chart, statewide traffic fatalities, the blue line is year to year, the number of fatalities. You can see a sharp increase since 2018, kind of in a almost linear format here. And it did dip down a little bit from 2021 to 22. And in 2023, we're at 1327. Unofficially, these numbers tend to change as we go until everything gets put in the books. But so this is where we're at. TDOT projects this, again, based kind of doing a linear regression, projecting those forward. You can see they have to come up with a number for 2023 and 2024 for their target number of what they've set here. So the orange line is the 5-year rolling average. And so that's the increase. Another one I want to show is the non-motorist fatality. This one's also unfortunately been on a steady increase. TDOT has set this target by, again, looking at the increases between the last few years and projecting those forward. In this case, it's like 11.5% increase average, going back to like 2019. So to me, these numbers are, dramatically high, the way they projected them out here, and hopefully we don't get to those levels. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the 2023 value for this number. So hopefully by the executive board, I'll have that number to at least show you how we compare on their 2023 projected number of 780 versus what the actual was. So finally, as far as the data goes, TDOT has a software online program called AASHTO Safety that allows you to actually plug in the TPO boundary and get the fatalities for that geography. So if we wanted to look at setting a target for the TPO area and also using our new Safe Streets for All plan that was done last year, where we set a goal in that we would reduce fatalities by 66% by the year 2045. And what that translates to is a 5% reduction per year out to 2045. So if I plot that, assuming 2023 is the base number we're starting from, that number was 114 fatalities in the TPO region. Reducing that by 5% would put us at 108 for 2024, and then that factors into that target. So even though we're reducing them, you can see the target actually increases by the way the math works of averaging those 5-year periods. And we've got some lower numbers back here versus higher numbers in the new rolling average. So that's one quirk of this when you look at the 5-year average. So we're not actually, recommending that we go this route right this minute to set our own target, but this is an option for discussion. So in summary here, what we've been done, this is actually the 7th time we've done a safety target. Hard to believe we're at that point, but what we've done in the past is we say TPO agrees to plan and program projects that support the state's established targets. So that's what the resolution in your packet lays out. Some of the factors that go into that recommendation is that we are not directly evaluated on these by Federal Highway. TDOT does get evaluated each year. As I mentioned, though, one thing that does enable us to potentially look at doing our own local target is this new TDOT AASHTO Aware Safety Analyst online platform. The one problem there is that, as you recall, at our last meeting, we just approved a new TPO boundary. So that has to be uploaded to that system to get the new boundary area and calculate the crashes within that. So we'll have to wait until that gets updated. There's also other challenges with our TPO planning area and with partial counties of Loudoun, Anderson, Blount, especially for the rate targets. You have to determine what the vehicle miles traveled just in that partial county would be. So it creates some challenges there and some potential, large amount of work to get that established. And then finally here, we will be tracking our safety goals with the Safe Streets for All grant. You'll hear about that later on your agenda today. As I mentioned, we have that goal to reduce by 66%. So what we'll probably do is set up some dashboards online and track that performance moving forward. We're also working on the Mobility Plan 2050, as you know. Along with that, we'll be determining a lot of performance factors to evaluate our projects against, and again, looking to establish an online dashboard format to track those that performance as we move forward. So there's other ways we're going to be, tracking safety and hoping to bring those numbers down. But for now, we feel like it's still appropriate just to support the state targets. That's all I have. If there are any questions on this item, happy to answer them, or otherwise we need a motion to recommend approval.
All right. Well, you've heard Mike's presentation. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I had a question, Mike. On the fatalities as they're increasing, is the vehicle miles travel increasing correspondingly, or is the rate increasing?
Yeah, that's the thing that has always bothered me with with these targets showing an increased fatality rate, because in the past what we had always seen is that while the fatality numbers had tracked up over time, you also had a corresponding increase in vehicle miles traveled and population, of course, in a state like Tennessee with growing population. But what we've seen since 2018 has really far outpaced the growth in vehicle miles traveled. And biggest thing there was obviously 2020, where we had a major drop in VMT with COVID, and yet fatalities still increased. So this kind of leads me to believe that there's other factors at play here outside of kind of the roadway system factors for fatalities. I think we're seeing a very large increase in distracted driving under the influence, and other behavioral side of factors that are maybe driving these numbers. And so obviously those are hard for us to tackle on the transportation planning project side, but that's kind of my opinion of what's going on there. I tried to throw that on this chart last year. I took it off this year just because of the scales, but I can add that back for the executive board. There's a dash line that shows that VMT growth. And so, yeah, we have outpaced that. So that rate is increasing, which is obviously not favorable. So,
is there any more questions? Taking the staff recommendation of staff, I would ask for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Item number 5, Transportation Planning Work Program Amendment.
Good morning, everyone. A very basic amendment to the work program, and this is a clarification more than anything, but we want to take an affirmative and transparent action on this discussion. And this is for the regional pavement condition data collection in the region. This has happened once in the past. We have some member agencies that only portions of their areas are within the TPO planning area. So those are our counties, as Mike has recently talked about. When we have a city or town, we don't take a portion of that area, but for the counties, other than Knox County, we have partial areas. And this is a clarification that as we go to the next round of that data collection, that may occur outside of the TPO planning area to support complete network data collection for those member agencies. Having a portion of their network doesn't do them a lot of good. So there's a lot of rationale for supporting that as part of our regional initiative. And this language was not in there. We had consultation with Federal Highway, and they said, if you're going to be doing collection outside of that area, we would like to see definitive a notation of that in your work program, as well as then, of course, making an affirmative decision from recommendation from this body and decision from the executive board to support that spending of TPO funding outside of the planning area. And that is the only thing that we're changing there, just that red text that's being added to this item in there. And if there are any questions, I can speak to that.
Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, I ask for a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Can you get a second? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Carries. Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much.
Item number 6, new TDOT 10-year project plan, TDOT staff.
Can you help me with that? So we have a presentation, some information. So y'all saw just before the executive board.
You have it already?
Yeah. Last month, which I wasn't here, so Michelle got to cover that for me. I did think about y'all during that meeting because I was walking on the beach listening to that meeting. It was great. But at that point, you know, we came out with the announcement of what the 10-year plan is. So we've always done a 3-year plan. The 3-year plan always had year one, and this is exactly what we're going to be able to build because that's what is passed by the state legislature. Just like your all's budgets every year, we have a budget that goes through. This is what's good for the year, and this is what we think is coming. Okay, so we got our crystal ball out and see what we come up with and go from there. We have come out with what we're calling the 10-year plan at this point. And as far as the details about the 10-year plan, I'm going to let the region come through and talk about that more specific.
Can't use the clicker, sorry.
We can use the arrows. We can use the arrows. So this is the 10-year plan, and this is published. This was published on the 18th of December. This information's out there. If you've not read it, I'd highly encourage you to read it. And don't skim it. There is a lot of information in here. It's about 20 pages, 22 pages. Last couple of pages are projects. But there is some very good detailed information on there, so you can scan that. There's also a QR card at the end, as well as if this presentation's out there, you can click on this link. The biggest part about this project, we want to make sure, or this is, the projects are out there. This is what we can do with what we have today and what we have projected coming in. Okay. I'm going to introduce, y'all know Dexter and Steve Borden. These are our leaders out of Region 1 that deal with project management, project development. They've been involved with this as well. We've all gone through the same meetings on learn how to do this. So which one of you guys is up to bat? Dexter is going to be the lucky one for you all to come up. So the nice part about having Dexter here is I'm good for about one question. Dexter is good for a little bit deeper in the levels. So instead of me saying, hey, let me get back to you on that question, we just brought the answers with us, hopefully. And what we can tell you Dexter will be able to answer those questions. Now, we are expecting more information to come out. We are expecting the commissioner potentially to come to one of the meetings here in the near future as well and potentially give us more updates on what's going on. But there are lots of good things. Do you want questions during, or do you want to wait?
No, we'll wait for it.
If you wait to the end for all your questions, and then you can peg them with all the questions you've got, and then he'll go through and kind of explain what we're doing.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you guys for having us this morning. Pleased to get up here and try to explain what's going on with the 10-year plan and how we got to where we are today. When we get to the end of the presentation, I'll run through all the projects in Region 1 that were selected for the TMA and obviously point out the ones that are here in the TPO area. First off, again, Troy took our screenshots directly from our publication on the 10-year plan. So if you scan that code that he had on there to begin with, you can go see all this and even more detail about the 10-year plan. But clearly you guys are used to seeing our projects broke down into 3 phases. That's continuing to work in that realm with PE coming first. Obviously you have to buy a right of way to implement construction, and construction coming third. We had guiding principles that set forth the lens through how we viewed putting this 10-year plan together. To develop the 10-year physically constrained plan, the first and foremost thing is if it's in the plan, we're starting it and we're finishing it. So you will see PE, right-of-way, construction in the plan for every project that's in there. Some of them have PE funded previously. You may just see right-of-way and construction. But if it shows up in the plan, you'll see all 3 phases show up in the plan. And again, capital improvements is what we're all talking about with the 10-year plan, but we also went through and looked at prioritizing system preservation. So we have some of our funding that has traditionally been like resurfacing, bridge replacement program, all those things still continue. Money is set aside for those things. And we always are looking for a balance between urban and rural investments. It's hard to compare projects that are urbanized projects and they're high congestion projects to something that may be of a benefit in a rural area. So we still tried to find a balance between those two factors. And clearly we are a pay-as-you-go state. What money come in, we want to be as efficient as we can in leveraging all those potential funding revenues, different federal grants, those kinds of things, statewide partnerships, and obviously we've been looking at public-private partnerships through the TMA as well. And then, of course, the $3 billion that came with the TMA, we want to put that to work as quickly as possible. Just for transparency, we're looking at $15 billion over a 10-year period. So we got an additional $3 billion, which is part of the $15 billion, to spread over 10 years. So that's what the 10-year plan does. It shows you how we're going to spend all $15 billion. We went through, historically, we probably had underestimated cost on projects. We went through and recosted every project, new updated estimates. And first, we wanted to take care of what was already in our 3-year plan, and you'll see that about a third of the money is going to take care of that issue, $519 million to fund the current 3-year plan. The strategy here was to take all the different areas of projects that we have represented by the big orange balls on the left of the screen, and they're proportionally sized to the different types of projects that we had in those subcategories, and push them through a funnel that did a prioritization process, analyzed potential choice lanes, and then what comes out of the funnel is absolutely funded in the 10-year plan, and that's where the TMA funds were applied and our normal funding program was applied at the end of the funnel. That's what made up the 10-year plan. With always saying what we start, we finish, right? So the 10-year plan, if it's in there, we will be finishing it. TDOT's prioritization process, there's the evaluation criteria that we used. There's goal areas, and then the 8 different things that were ranked and put numbers to and values to further implement the prioritization process. key TDOT programs within a 10-year project plan. TMA supported the investment programs, but you also see in the funding breakdown there that we have the highway program projects, which is making up 55% of our funding. We still have 45% of our funding going to state of good repair, like I talked about earlier with pavement preservation, bridge preservation, ITS, safety, and advanced engineering and environmental mitigation, stuff that helps support the implementation of highway program projects. So you'll see, I think we said $15 billion over 10 years going to the 55%. So there's another billions of dollars going into our preservation of our system in that 45%. You'll see a map in there of all the projects that were selected in the 10-year plan across the state. There's even one that's more broke down by region. And we'll do a quick run through of all the projects. Boy, I can't read that from here. But luckily, I have glasses. I can read it off the screen here. So as you go through this list of projects, you'll see that it's broke down in categories. And like I said, the first thing they did was took $519 million to fully fund the projects that were in the existing 3-year plan. And that's what's listed here first. I think we in Region 1 have 11 projects. You'll see the first one being a Sullivan County State Route 116 project, Anderson County State Route 170, which is what we refer to as Section 2, is the county portion of that corridor. That one is an MPO project with PE currently underway, right-of-way funded in FY25 and anticipated construction in FY28. Campbell County State Route 63, so it's truck climbing lane, remained in there for construction in FY24. We have a Cocke County not way station. It says way station. That's a misprint. It's a rest area renovation there at the Hartford Welcome Center. That one is showing for construction FY27. Hamlin County State Route 34 project, commonly referred to as 11E, set for construction FY24 later this year. Hawkins County State Route 31, set for construction FY26, right-of-ways nearly finished. Hawkins County State Route 66, right-of-way going on starting in FY24 with construction anticipated in FY27. Knox County I-75 interchange at Emory Road. This is the DDI here in this MPO area. This one is set for construction FY25. We were probably about halfway through the right-of-way process at this point. Monroe County State Route 322. This project is in the right-of-way phase right now, and we have construction set in FY25. Sevier County State Route 449 extension. This is the Improve Act project from State Route 35 up to Robert Henderson Road. It's in right-of-way right now, and we anticipate going to construction FY25 with that one. Sullivan County State Route 93. This is the last spot improvement along the 93 corridor. We have it going to construction FY24. So again, about a third of the statewide money in the 10-year plan went to make sure that this existing 3-year plan projects get finished. Obviously, there's a list of projects in Region 2, 3, and 4 on there as well. So if you move to the next page, you'll see projects selected for traditional state and federal funding moving through the 10-year plan. We have 3 projects identified in that one. Knox I-75 interchange at Sharps Gap. You'll see that we anticipate there's $521 million going to that project. That's a mega project here in the MPO. Another one is Blount County State Route 162. This project is the commonly referred to as Pellissippi Parkway extension. It shows up in the plan for right-of-way in FY32 and construction thereafter. And then Morgan County State Route 29 project that's MPE now and anticipating construction in FY30. Then we move down to the next red label, which is projects that will be funded with TMA funding, or at least a portion of TMA dollars. the $3 billion that we referred to earlier. This section is broke down into some subcategories as well. You'll see that gray header for an urban congestion. Region 1 has 3 projects identified in there. We have the next, or stage 2 of relocated Alcoa Highway in Blount County. We commonly refer to it as the .05 pin. You see $123 million set aside for that project, assuming that stage 1 gets done on time. We'll go to construction in FY28. That's an easy delivery project. The next project is Anderson State Route 170. This is section 1, the Oak Ridge portion. Has been selected to move forward. We are in PE on it currently. Anticipate right away in 25 and construction in FY27. The third project on here is really more of a corridor study. It's a $32 million set aside for FY29 to do a PE study for a potential choice lane and congestion mitigation project that would span from the I-75, I-40 interchange out west in Loudoun County all the way down to James White Parkway. So then we move to the next subcategory for TMA funding, which is the rural interstate widening portion of the TMA funding. We have about a anticipated $97 million project to widen I-75 from the I-40, I-75 interchange down to the Lenore City exit. We anticipate starting PE. This is probably an alternative delivery project, but starting PE in FY25 with construction commencing in FY27. The next subcategory is rural other. These are some rural locations around each region that need some attention. Some of them are larger projects in some other regions, but here in Region 1, we ended up with 3 intersection improvements along State Route 62 in Morgan County. I think it's at Pettit Lane, Fairview Road, and State Route 116. And then you'll see Monroe County, I think State Route 33 intersection at Niles Ferry Road. And then we'll move on down to the statewide partnership projects that were selected as a subcategory as TMA. We have 2 projects in Region 1, Washington County, Knob Creek Road improvements from Marketplace Road, which is close to State of Franklin up through Mississippi Hills on the other side of the railroad tracks. And Sevier County Interstate 40 interchange at proposed mile marker 408. You'll see that in there with PE and FY25 right away in 27 and construction in FY30. After that, we had a TMA bridge program. Each region had some money set aside for addressing bridge issues in each region. Region 1 had 1 bridge identified. It's a mega bridge on Interstate 40 in Jefferson County over Douglas Lake. You'll see there that we have $216 million set aside to replace that bridge. If you'll remember, I'm sure you're not familiar with it, but if you'll remember the bridge that collapsed in Minnesota a number of years ago, this bridge is pretty much identical construction to that bridge. Not saying we're in ballpark of a collapse, but it's that type of bridge. It's a deck truss, and redundancy is not part of any truss system. So we are looking to get a more redundant bridge that will last for many years to come in that location. And then you'll see the general fund transfer projects that are moving forward. We have 2 in Region 1, Sevier County State Route 449 extension that picks up at the other edge of the one that was in the 3-year plan there at Robert Henderson Road and moves towards State Route 66. And you also see Knox County I-40 interchange at Watt Road still listed as a general fund transfer project in the 10-year plan. With that, I think that covers the slideshow and what we have and what's made the 10-year plan regionally and here in the TPO. I know I'm up for any questions, and Steve Borden's here with us as well, and he'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions? Yes, sir.
Dexter, appreciate the presentation. You guys developed your own prioritization criteria, I guess, and have the ability to do that. Did that criteria look at projects that had been in the initial stages of preliminary engineering or design or even NEPA but never made it to right of way or never made it to construction as part of the criteria that said, you know, you're probably only 10, 15% of the way in. Obviously, the larger costs for any project are going to be right away in construction.
Sure.
There's several projects, you know, that have been on the books for decades even, but they never made it into NEPA or through NEPA. Was that part of that consideration process?
The categories that were on the screen were what was ranked. There you see crash reduction, volume, capacity ratio, travel time, to address all the goal areas. Each project was looked at through those lenses and come up with a score. That was kind of stage one. But then the second phase of that was a deliverability. How deliverable was the project? So if it was a project that may be tough, but we have already bought all the right of way, well, that changes the deliverability score for that project, as opposed to looking at it as a new start from a NEPA standpoint.
Okay.
So then those things are kind of plotted against each other and help drove the final selection tool.
In the last 3 years, we've had about what feels like 20 years of inflationary costs. Do you at least feel good about revisiting all of those estimates and having a number that's hopefully inflated? If you'd done this level of work in 20, you'd be 3 years in and pretty much be undone with it.
Right. Yeah. So the recosting that we did, we feel confident that we covered the actual cost of the project. We may have swung just a little bit beyond that. I mean, estimating the cost of a project from a start is an art, not a complete science, right? And we don't know what that inflationary cost is going to be. The 10-year plan assumed a 3.8% inflation. So if it's 10 years from now, it's 3.8% annually. Clearly, revenue, we assumed it was going to stay flat. So it's built off of our normal revenue streams at a 3.8% inflation rate. If inflation is lower than that, that's to our benefit. If it's higher than that, then we're going to have to adjust. Yeah. So we'll be looking at this 10-year plan annually.
I was going to ask you, how does this plan go forward year to year? And is there room to anticipate a new project, 2 years down the road or 5 years down the road?
So this is a game plan. This is what we're trying to accomplish. We think this is physically constrained with the scenario I just laid out. So as a project goes off the books, if it ends up being cheaper, then there's some money available to do some other things with, if that makes sense. Clearly, if it ends up being more expensive, then that has an impact on what's remaining. Okay. And partnerships would be part of that as well. If there's money available, how do we leverage those dollars to do other work?
Okay.
No clear answers on that, but that's kind of the vision.
And just lastly, for the record, I think Maryville's disappointed where Pellissippi ends up in this plan in 2032, but I think that's been previously stated and understood. We're just disappointed.
Sure.
Just for some additional information, staff is, as TDOT has said, this is very early on. We're trying to go through and digest the information. We put at your spots this little table here. The top part shows what projects are in the planning area from the 10-year plan. And as you know, we're getting ready to start our mobility plan. So this kind of assesses, as you walk across this table, the 10-year projects, where they are in our current mobility plan and where they are in our TIP. And there'll have to be some adjustments there. The bottom part of the table are projects that we had either in the mobility plan or TIP more in the current year that are based on the 10-year plan, no longer in the more immediate need. And you can see there's about 11 projects there. As I think TDOT has said, this kind of gets assessed each year down the line, and there's a potential at some point maybe these projects come back on the books in a more current status. But we're just now getting through this. Craig and Mike put this together. It's just some information we wanted to get out to you so you can kind of see what the effects of this are.
All right. Any more comments?
Can I go one last time?
I guess.
Okay. I was really excited about the promise and the prospect of a statewide partnership program. I think, when Matt and the survey presented that, I was really optimistic that was probably the right path forward for TDOT and for local governments that wanted to do improvements on state routes. Do you have any sense of where that program goes from this point? Because I think there's real good opportunities to kind of help each other there.
Yeah, certainly. Yes, and it has been an effective program, and for a lot, even before what the statewide partnership program that we put forth last year. You know, over the years, most of the folks around these tables, we've partnered on a lot of different projects. Each of y'all have brought something to the table in a form of a way for us to move forward. There will be another call for partnership projects in the future, and so I think that that's an avenue going forward as we move through navigating the opportunities to improve our systems as partners. Will still be there. Yes.
Thanks, Steve.
Any more? All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Good update.
Thank you.
Item number 7, Safe Streets, Roads for All grant. Got John.
I'll introduce this real quick. We want to share information about the recent announcement of the Safe Streets and Roads for All grants. City received $8 million federal for $10 million total project worth. So John's going to present on that, on the city's projects that were awarded, and then I'm going to follow up with some slides because there was a separate application that was done for the entire TPO region where we didn't, unfortunately, not get our implementation projects that we had requested, but I have some information about that and potentially the next round, which will be coming out. So I'll turn it over to John.
Hello, I'm John Livengood. I work for the City of Knoxville Transportation Engineering. So just to start, just to show a timeline to show where how we got the grant. Back in 22-23, a bunch of regional partners came together and we all worked on some Vision Zero plans and developed action plans. So the city's action plan contains high injury network, crash profiles, countermeasures, action plan framework, and priority locations and funding opportunities. We finished that up last June. And then in July, we applied for the Safe Streets for All grant. And then just this past December, we got awarded the grant. So here's kind of a breakdown of what projects we are going to complete with the grant. It's a combination of non-infrastructure and construction projects. So as for the non-infrastructure projects, we're doing a speed management plan. So that's going to look at city streets in a more context-sensitive aspect and look at streets identified in the high injury network from our action plan and make recommendations for more appropriate speed limits. Second project we're going to do is we're going to update our bicycle facilities plan. The city already has a bicycle facilities plan that was developed in 2015. This update is going to have a more focus on protected bike lanes, where the original plan, we had some protected bike lanes in there, but that wasn't the main focus. We're also going to have a section that focuses specifically on intersection improvements. And then we're also going to have a section that looks at what are some quick build projects we can do. So while the longer construction projects are being designed, we can actually implement some quick projects. The third project we're going to do is create an online dashboard. So the online dashboard is going to have transparency for the public so they can keep up with what projects we're doing. But also it's going to provide some tools for staff to work behind the scenes, work with some advanced data analytics, custom queries, data overlays, create collision diagrams, and come up with additional countermeasure recommendations for safety improvements. Let's see. We also are going to focus on stakeholder engagement. So we're going to host focus groups and implement targeted intervention campaigns, focus on aggressive driving, speeding, bike ped safety, and distracted driving. We are also going to have some feasibility studies. These are basically going to look at the high injury network identified in the action plan and look for some quick build strategies for those locations. And last, what we call MUT engineering studies. That is going to look at numerous intersections in the city for left turn, protected left turn movements. The action plan identified left turns and U-turns at intersections as a major safety issue. So this study will focus specifically on that. The construction projects, we're hitting 3 specific areas. So first, you may have heard about is Magnolia Avenue. We're looking at 3 intersections there. Those are where we have multiple severe crashes and some fatalities. So we're going to look at pedestrian crossing improvements that may include refuges, RRFBs, high visibility crosswalks, but then also improvements at Cherry Street. There's a lot extra room at Cherry Street that I think we can also shorten crossing distances and also improve pedestrian signal usage. The next construction project, Broadway Streetscapes project. This project is currently in design. This project fills in a missing gap in our Greenway network on First Creek Greenway between Woodland Avenue and Cecil Avenue. And so the grant will provide construction funding for this project. And then the last construction project is the Woodland Complete Streets project. This is also currently in design. This project performs a road diet on Woodland Avenue from Broadway up to West Glenwood, I believe. And this creates improved bike pedestrian facilities from the First Creek Greenway near Broadway up to the existing bike facilities on Woodland Avenue. It also adds a sidewalk and also has pedestrian crossing improvements. So really taking an overbuilt street and making it much more usable for all users. And I think that's my brief update on our Safe Streets for All grant. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any.
All right, John, thank you. Any questions for John? Yes.
I have a quick question. John, I'm curious, since you only received $8 million out of the $10 million that was applied for, your project list, are you all making any adjustments to that or pushing out the timeline, or how are you all handling it?
That is actually what we applied for. Our total project list is $10 million, so it's 80% federal match, so we got $8 million.
Any more? Okay, thanks, John.
Thanks.
Oh, Mike.
Just have a few more slides here to update you guys on the regional side. So you've obviously remember Ellen Zaviska led the effort for this, and we put this plan together in order to get it adopted before the deadline for the implementation grants, which was last July. And so this regional roadway safety plan was adopted last year. As I mentioned earlier, it has a commitment in there to reduce fatal and serious injury crashes by 2/3 by 2045. The intent of this is to apply for that safe SS4A funding, which is $5 billion spread over 5 years, so $1 billion each year. And this upcoming year will be the 3rd year of that. We submitted an application, and I'll show those projects here on the next slide. We weren't awarded implementation money, but part of the grant did request additional $24,000 federal, $30,000 total with the match to add on to our plan to expand it to cover the entirety of Anderson County. They requested that, and so that was funded. With the regional safety plan, again, I won't go into details, but what the purpose of it is to data-driven determine which roadways were the highest injury network, we called it. So like when you look at all the data, just 1.7% of all the streets account for close to 30% of the serious injuries and fatalities. So those are the ones we want to target for improvement. This is the summary of the projects that were submitted for funding. There were 7 in Knox County, 1 in Oak Ridge, 1 in Maryville. There was a regional safety messaging campaign that was also requested. And then finally, the Anderson County's safety study expansion, which that was the only one that was selected for funding. We did have a debrief just a couple days ago or late last week with Federal Highway as to why the implementation was not funded. And someone from the county sat in, Kathy from your staff, Jim, and so they gave us feedback on that. Part of the issue there is that while there's $1 billion available each year, that's split into $600 million for implementation and $400 million for planning and demonstration. And so they received $2.5 billion worth of requests for the $600 million pot, and actually less than the $400 million on the planning side. But I guess the way it's written into law, they can't, mix and match or bring some funding left over. So they did give us feedback on where we could improve our application. One thing that would probably help next round is if we submitted individual applications instead of combining everything together like that. So like Knox County does their own, Maryville, Oak Ridge. That way, part of it, there's a page limit on this, and also so where you can add more detail and factors that should be considered for that. So, again, it's extremely highly competitive for those funds. What they're saying is the next round should open next month and be open for a 90-day period. So we'll be looking to get our group back together. We had a task force of folks that put the plan together. So we'll talk about, what we can potentially apply for in the next round. One thing that the feedback they gave us is definitely apply for the planning and demonstration funds. If you have anything that makes sense, like all those studies that John just listed, if any of the types of those or others make sense around the region, it's pretty much automatic that you'll get that funding because it's so undersubscribed on the applications for that 400 million piece of this. So they definitely encouraged going after that funding if it makes sense. So that's another thing we'll discuss, and I think that's all I have. So any questions about that aspect?
Questions for Mike? All right, thank you.
All right.
Got any more? Okay. Moving on. Well, before we have, is anybody on FHWA today? Okay. Troy, have any more? Troy.
Zach wasn't available.
Okay.
Zach had a conflict today, Federal Highway. Talked to him yesterday. But we do have a couple things here real quick for you all. Today's the 9th. You have 10 days if you want a planning grant from TDOT to submit. Okay? Putting that pressure out there because it's a real short turnaround.
How many do you have now? That's the question. Yeah.
How many grants do we have?
How many have been submitted early?
I don't know. I know I've heard of one so far, but I don't know how many.
There you go.
But that was a couple of days ago. It's an online form stack. Go through, fill it out, put the information in there the best you can. And if you have a question on it, call us, call Michelle. You can call me, you can call Rhonda, harass any of us. We're more than happy to help you with answering those questions. I think Mike may have sent out a PDF version of it so you can see what questions you're getting into. Now it's being tweaked just a little bit. There wasn't a map component involved with this. So we're making a space you can put a map in, which makes sense. But there is an area that you upload a resolution. You can upload basically any of your documents into that until we get that fixed as well. But you can still only upload one. So you put it all in one PDF, we can see it all. And we're working on those tweaks, but you got 9 days left to get those in. Highly encourage y'all to put those, apply for those. They are very competitive because we see those and we have been very successful with those. You can upload separate stuff. Michelle's on the call now, so she's watching after me. You can upload separate individual pieces of information there as well. So, but again, let us know. I mean, we can do to help. This supplements what the TPO does in these plans. All the plans that Federal Highway, or we were just talking about Federal Highway. We also talk about the plans that you all do here with the MPO. These are supplemental to all those to help as well. So we can help carry that that lift for the TPO so they can also work on some other plans. The only other big thing I want to talk about briefly is you have a few new faces around the table, and then I was going to explain to you all why briefly. As you all know, it's extremely hard to find an MPO coordinator. Congratulations, by the way, I think. And this is not just in this region, it's statewide. I've seen it. I've been in the MPO business for a while, and I've seen it statewide where you get somebody and they last for 20, 30 years. And then if someone flops out and doesn't like it, they don't, it's hard to find people. But there are two people at this table today that are going to more or less be new. So y'all remember Don Brown? You can't forget Don Brown. Don has announced his retirement. So he's still going to be doing some stuff, hopefully with us, with the MPO, but he's or the RPO, but he's kind of stepping down a little bit from that. Right now, we're looking at Laura, and the RPO group, but they are still looking at it for a replacement for him. So I'm putting a plug out there for advertisement. And the other one is Rich DeGrosser, who usually sits over here beside me. This is the new Rich for the moment. This is Steve Nielsen. For the moment. Steve's the Development Services Director. Is that your title?
Yes.
For City of Morristown, which is the cognizant agency for the Lakeway area MPO. And so there is an opening there as well. They'll also be looking for that. So you'll see Steve at some of these meetings. You'll see Laura. Of course, she's been coming to our meetings anyway for some of this, but they are both still actively pursuing transportation professionals. If y'all know anybody, I'm sure they'll be interested. And, but we just wanted to make sure everyone at the table kind of knew what was going on with those positions. So that's all I have at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any updates? No. Okay. All right, let's move on to number 9, other business.
Yeah, we wanted to add one quick thing here. Our area received a EPA climate pollution reduction grant. It went to the city of Knoxville, and the Knox County Planning is also participating as a major partner in there. And Allie Ketron from our agency wanted to show you a few slides and give you an update on where that project stands.
Thanks, Doug. So like Doug said, I just want to take a minute to give you all an update on this project that has been dubbed Breathe. So I'll get into that in just a second, but I wanted to do just a quick recap. There are some folks at the table I know are really well aware of what's going on right now, and others probably aren't. So just as a reminder, you all received some correspondence from Ellen Zaviska last spring, just kind of notifying you all that this was on the horizon. So the EPA has awarded approximately 80 different MSAs throughout the country with $1 million planning grants. And so those are intended to create regional climate plans. And this project will ultimately have 2 different phases to it, two different grants. So the first of those are these planning grants. And then this spring, they'll open up some funding for implementation as well. But in terms of the planning grants, there are 2 phases within that as well. So where we are right now in the project is in what they're calling the PCAP. So it's the Priority Climate Action Plan. And that phase has to be wrapped up in March. So it's a fast turnaround. That will include greenhouse gas inventories for participating communities. And it'll also include some like outreach plans for how these participating communities intend to do that outreach throughout the life of this grant. And so then once that's wrapped up, it'll go into the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan. So that'll happen once the PCAPs are submitted in March. So in order for communities to be considered for the implementation funding, they have to have submitted something through the PCAP. So that's just an important piece of this. And it's expected that those implementation dollars will be competitive. So Knoxville is one of the MSAs. The Knoxville MSA is one of the areas that received some of that funding. So we're in the midst of that planning grant right now. The city of Knoxville has taken the lead on those greenhouse gas inventories. They've hired a consultant that they're working with to conduct that work. And then the TPO is partnering with them to help plan for and conduct that regional outreach. So Breathe is how we have branded our local work on this. And the focus of that is to find ways for communities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and other co-pollutants throughout the MSA. So Knoxville and Alcoa and Maryville and Oak Ridge are the jurisdictions that have signed on to it and are participating. And there's also a hold on, I gotta close this out. There's a stakeholder group that has convened and met a couple of times. Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. There we go. So this slide just shows you the makeup of that stakeholder group. So those jurisdictions as well as other partners throughout the region. So again, the competition for those implementation dollars is expected to be pretty tight, and it really depends on, our competitiveness for that depends on a really coordinated regional effort. So what we wanted to do today is just kind of remind you all that this is going on and let you know that we want to open the door to further conversation with you all about anything that may be going on in your communities that we should be aware of, that would be important to just know about and sort of be planning for in this initial phase. So thinking about projects that are near term, high priority, implementation ready, and those would need to ultimately result in greenhouse gas emissions reduction. To give you an idea of what that might mean to you, so sectors that this would include would be, buildings, transportation, waste, agriculture or other land use, energy, industry, things like that. And then some examples of things that are just sort of obvious fits within this work are, EV programs, building energy efficiency programs, solar programs, waste diversion programs, things like that. So again, we just wanted to sort of open the door today, give you all a reminder, let you know if this is ringing a bell for anything. We encourage you to have some follow-up conversations with us. Staff's available to chat after this meeting. If there are anything, if there is anything that you all think we should be aware of and just kind of know what's going on, have that as sort of this background research or could be included within the plan. We encourage you to reach out. The email address that's up here on this slide goes to the project team. So if you've got sort of technical questions, I encourage you to reach out there and the most appropriate staff person can help respond to those. But give us a call, email us, and let us know if there's anything that you all want to chat about and, get on our radar.
Okay. Any questions? Any more other business?
No, just to follow up, if you have something that you already know that's going on in your community that fits one of these categories, let us know. That can be like a win-win that we can put in for some implementation funding.
Thank you. Dallas, any public comment today? All right, seeing none. Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? If you oppose, you're out of luck. Everybody have a good day.